Hello, my name is Matías Oviedo, and I'm a PhD candidate in the Roman Studies Department at Cornell University. My presentation is entitled Taking the Anthropocene Beyond the Earth, Notes on La Compañía by Verónica Gerber Bicecci. La Compañía is an unusual book in two parts. The first is a graphic novel that rewrites Amparo Dávila's short story El Huésped against the background of photographs of the former mines around Nuevo Mercurio in Zacatecas, Mexico. Here, I will focus on the second part, a montage of 100 passages and images from various sources, interviews, short stories, and government reports, to name a few, that tell the story of the emergence, peak, and aftermath of the extraction of mercury in the area. The text shows an acute environmental awareness. A significant part of it focuses on the health and ecological consequences of both the mining industry and the subsequent repurposing of the abandoned mines into toxic waste dumping grounds. The most original aspect about the environmental awareness in La Compañía is, however, less obvious. I say this without the intention of dismissing the urgent health concerns in and around the Nuevo Mercurio mining system. This is not the issue I would like to raise here, for Gerber's book does so much more effectively than I ever could. What interests me here, instead, is how the text points to redefining what we understand as environment. As Olson and Mesery have pointed out, the discourse around the Anthropocene has pressed downward and its cosmos is terrestrial. Yet, the launch of Sputnik in October 1957 opened a two-way channel of interaction between our planet and outer space. A steady growth in space activity since has resulted in nearly 20,000 artificial objects orbiting our planet today. After space exploration, the idea of the Earth as an enclosed environment no longer became viable, if it ever was. Considering only 2,600 of those objects are active satellites, the rest is space junk that occasionally re-enters the atmosphere. This has led some scholars to talk about a new geological layer circling around our planet, and others to depict the outer space as a natural force in human history. In addition, the prevalent understanding of the Anthropocene is overdetermined by anthropic relations with inner environment and underdetermined by anthropic relations with outer environment. Considering these points, I argue that the Anthropocene should not be understood in isolation from outer space, not only because the sun, moon, and electromagnetic environment shape and drive the climate of the Earth, but because of the human ecological footprint on them. As Nigel Clarke argues, terrestrial and extraterrestrial processes are inevitably intertwined, and this is something that Gerber's work grapples with. If the debates around the Anthropocene have invigorated discussions about the boundaries between the human and non-human, nature and culture, the humanities and sciences, among others, those separating the terrestrial from the extraterrestrial have not been among them. The Earth seems to be the firm and unquestionable grounding of the Anthropocene, a concept that is being deployed in ways that privilege downward, inward, and spherically enclosed terra, and anthropocentric understandings of what counts as environment. I contend here that Gerber's project destabilizes this by turning outward, and she does so in a twofold manner, outside of the planet and outside of the modern subject. As we know, extractivism is how the Anthropocene makes itself present in Latin America, a practice that in Nuevo Mercurio adopts the form of an enclave economy. From Gerber's most recent work, Otro Día, Poemas Sintéticos, La Máquina Distópica, La Compañía, and En el Ojo de Bambi, one can gather that she is interested in exploring planetary scales of space and time. It is the former that this presentation is occupied with, where I propose to think about Nuevo Mercurio as an interplanetary borderland, as a place that makes evident why we need to think about the Anthropocene beyond the Earth, and the Earth and its interactions with extraterrestrial forces. That is, what boundaries and environments are and how we define them. While examining the immediate environmental effects of the mining industry and its aftermaths, La Compañía traces the history of meteorite impacts in the Nuevo Mercurio area. For instance, it shows a map of the state of Zacatecas indicating the location of the impacts. As we can see, these are more highly concentrated in the northeast of the state, where Nuevo Mercurio is located. Images in the book are often accompanied by some text on the opposite page. In the case of the map, it is preceded by a passage from a conversation between the author and Bernardo del Hoyo, a chronicler and meteorite collector, in which he underlines that Nuevo Mercurio is placed on a meteoric impact, and the extracted mercury is of meteoric origin. His testimony links the recent history of resource extraction with the deep time of cosmic activity that shaped our planet. There are two other mentions of meteorite impact in the book. The second one pertains to the most recent impact the region has seen. I quote, Fall 15 September 1978. Early in the evening, a bolide visible over the radius of at least 200 kilometers exploded with thunderous detonations over north-central Mexico, scattering meteorites over an elliptical area more than 10 kilometers in length just north of the village of Nuevo Mercurio. End quote. The layout of the passage resembles a journal entry, carefully recording time, place, and nature of the events. Its tone differs significantly from the testimony of a former miner, who described the moments of entry and impact in a later fragment. Como que se quemaba arriba, había una bolota de lumbre, sí, en el cielo. Fue todavía temprano. De repente como que explotó, se oyó. Empezaron a verse luces por todos lados. The miner also describes how the impact attracted interest from the scientific community and how the locals were prevented from visiting the sites of interest. Primero no querían que agarráramos ni una piedra ni nada, hasta que ellos terminaron de estudiarla. After the discovery of mercury deposits in the 1930s and the beginning of its exploitation in the following decade, Nuevo Mercurio became the most productive mercury district in Mexico and one of the most productive in the Western Hemisphere. During World War II, mercury was one of the 7 original metals designated as strategic, and virtually all of Mexico's mercury output was exported. Tied to international demand, its price sank after the war. Nuevo Mercurio finds itself at a nodal point where transnational actors and interests come directly in play and define key aspects of its underdevelopment over time. The locals hardly see the benefits of mercury abundance. All the industry brings to the region are fleeting employment, uneven development, and the long-lasting health problems that are a consequence of both the mercury itself and the toxic waste that results once it has been extracted. Given that the mercury found in the area is of meteoric origin, one could say that the outermost exterior, the extraterrestrial, is a constitutive mineral part of the local environment. Thus, the alien and the local are, in a sense, already intertwined. To come back to what I call the outside of modern subject, I see this in how the narrative is structured, which takes the Bakhtinian concept of polyphony to a whole different level. Verónica Gerber incorporates a plurality of voices and fades her own away, thereby adopting a role that is closer to that of a curator than that of an author. In an almost ethnographic exercise, she listens to the protagonist, and it is these other voices that tell the story. Gerber's intervention is, in this sense, repurposed to research, that rather than storytelling. In the first part of the book, her role is similarly diverted from an author to that of a rewriter, and in doing so, she does not appropriate the other's voices, but gives them a new context and legibility. By having her own voice disappear into the background, a form of plural authorship emerges that decenters the modern subject as a subject of authority, replacing it with a method that allows for the emergence of the common. To conclude, one can read Gerber's work as part of a larger planetary turn in contemporary Latin America that seeks to recuperate atavistic and novel forms of engaging outer space as a crucial part of the cosmos. La Compañía thus joins, among others, Patricio Guzmán's Nostalgia de la Luz and Nona Fernández's Voyager, in grappling with entanglements of deep time, personal and collective memory, and space research. Through Gerber's work, the planetary scale encounters outer space, blurring the distinction between inner and outer environments. If read as a narrative of the end of the world, Gerber's End of the World marks the beginning of the planetary. Thank you for your attention.